Okay, good morning. Happy Spiritual Sunday to you all. Happy Spiritual Sunday to all our friends who are watching us on Kabbalah.com and the Spiritual Sunday Facebook page. Hello, hello. Tell them that you love them and they're out there. Great. Okay. So how many of you are brand new to Spiritual Sunday? 1, 2, 3. Yay. All right. Great. How many of you out there are new to Spiritual Sunday? Wow, look, okay. Hundreds, okay. Well, that's what happens when you spread the light, right? So we're here every Sunday because we want to make our lives better. That's the bottom line. So then what's the difference between what we did before Kabbalah and after Kabbalah? Before Kabbalah, didn't you want to make your lives better? Yes. Yes or yes? Yes. See, for the new people, we don't always have free will. Okay, great. So we want to make our lives better. So what's the difference then between what we used to do and what we're doing now with Kabbalah?
We learn how to do it.
Okay, we learn how to do it, but all of us in some form have achieved an improvement in our life, didn't we? Yes. Made our lives better, we improved things in our life. That's great. What happened? We became aware that not always, two things, not always did those good things last. And the second thing is not always were the things we wanted truly the things we needed. Yeah, see, everybody now they're shaking their head, right? That's it. So what are we learning here? We are learning here how to connect ourselves with the power of the Creator, what we call the light force, and then let the light force bring us what we need. No matter what it is. Sometimes we need challenges. Did you ever go through a challenge that made you a better person, a stronger person? Again, yes, exactly. So sometimes we need those challenges. They're not always comfortable, but then spiritual growth cannot be comfortable. If it's comfortable, what changed? Nothing. Imagine an athlete. You have a world-class athlete, right? They can run a 10-second 100-meter dash. But when they're preparing for the Olympics, all they're doing is they're running a 25-second fast walk hundreds of times. Do you really think that they're going to be able to beat their 10-second record? Why not? Because they're just practicing in a comfortable way. Okay, they're having a nice walk, that's it. They're not pushing themselves. And therefore, their muscles aren't growing, their endurance isn't growing, their physiology is not growing, it's not changing. But they're doing the 100 meters. So you and I, the same thing. If we live our day the same way we lived it yesterday, with the same consciousness, the same actions, then we're not growing into the higher level of our soul's potential. So sometimes the world has to present us with uncomfortable situations, but what we're learning here, in order to speed up the process, is to face ourselves into those, or put ourselves into those uncomfortable situations, where we can share outside of our usual way, where we can act, as we're about to affirm, with greater love, kindness, and compassion. That means a week ago, you had a certain level of expression of love, kindness, and compassion. Today, we have the capability to do more. And that's all that's asked of us. Nobody in any Kabbalistic writing is ever asked to be a Moses or an Abraham or a Rebecca or any of the patriarchs, matriarchs, prophets, or prophetesses. All we're asked to be is the best version of ourselves. And we can only achieve that if we do what? Become better every day until we're at 100%. And so that's why we're here gathering, and we're gathering as many people as possible here in Boca and all the centers around the world and online. Because online we can have 7 billion people with us at the same time. And the more people are on the same page, the more energy there is for all of us to be able to do that. To express a higher level of our soul, to speed up the process, as we're going to talk today, to bring heaven on earth. Is that a good thing? Okay, so, yeah, okay, I agree. So let's get started. We have our affirmation that we're about to say together, that we can, again, in unity and oneness, we can add energy and support to each other. And also keep removing the falsehoods we've held on to for all our lives and inject more of the true reality. So if I can ask you to say it together with me, and those of you who are with us online, say it loud enough we can hear you. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. And all human beings means everybody. So as we do every Sunday, we're going to start with the people here. Give us a minute, please write. Give us a comment online, and we'll see you in just a moment. Today I want to talk to you about heaven. Yay. But I also want to talk to you about war. Oh, wait till we're done. Let's see. So Kabbalistically, what is heaven? There is something, I guess the closest thing to truly heaven, as most people would conceive it, is what the Kabbalists teach, and we learn from the beginning courses onward, the endless world. The world before the Big Bang. So the scientists tell us the Big Bang created the physical universe. All the stars, the planets, Earth, etc., started in this Big Bang. But they can't tell us what happened before that. So as far as we're concerned, that true endless sense of bliss, heaven, existed in the endless world. You and I were created there. You and I were created, as we call it, vessels. Our souls are containers for the infinite light of the Creator. So in that heaven, that original heaven, let's call it, we existed in unity, we existed in perfection, we existed absolutely one. We saw no distinction between any one of our souls. We were in essence one soul, like we'll often say, a perfect glass. And then came the Big Bang, and without going into all the details you learn in the classes, that glass shattered, and it came into the physical world. Why? Because in the endless world, that heaven was created by the Creator. But you and I, having the light of the Creator in us, this power of creativity, the infinite force of creation itself, we decided that we wanted to make our own heaven. So we came into a physical universe where there is a potential heaven on earth that the Bible, even though we don't take the Bible always on its literal level alone, but it literally says there was a Garden of Eden. And we believe there is a Garden of Eden on earth, heaven on earth. But as the story goes, Kabbalistically, we were thrown out, but kind of without going into every detail, we left the Garden of Eden. And we decided that we wanted to create our own way back. We had to come back to this Garden of Eden because we wanted to be the creators, like the Creator in the endless world. We wanted to make heaven on earth manifest here. But there's also a big difference between the endless world of heaven, where there's just the light force of the Creator and just unity. In this world of the physical material world, we see that we are influenced by two forces. There's one, the light of the Creator, because that's an infinite force of goodness, an infinite force of fulfillment, so that can never disappear. It's either we can connect to it or disconnect from it. But it can never disappear, and it can't go anywhere. But we also have that other force that we call the opponent or the adversary. That's a force within us. It's a voice we hear in our head that tells us lies, falsehoods, limitations, etc. So the true heaven, there's only the power of the Creator. This world, there's two powers affecting us. The opponent and the light. Why do we need an opponent? Why? Because when we achieve on our efforts heaven on earth, when we overcome that opponent that's limiting us, making an effort to push us back, keep us down, when we beat that opponent, victory is sweet. If there's no opponent, then how do you know what you've achieved or not? How do you understand the difference between before and after? We won't know. So it's like some people, when we're not faced with challenges, we can think how strong we are, capable we are, talented we are, etc. But how do we know? How do you know, simpler, how do you know how good a student you are? In simple terms, let's not get involved too much in the details. But how do you know? You're taking a class in history. You're taking a class in mathematics. You're taking a class in science. You study hard, you work hard, you listen, you record the classes so you can listen again, etc. How do you know how well you've learned? It's got to be a test. There's a test the professor gives. How well you do on that test is a sign of how much you've learned that subject. So then when we come into this world with absolute perfection within us, but we don't face a challenge, we don't face an obstacle, we don't face an opponent, then how do we know how well we have learned? How do we know how much greater love, kindness, and compassion we are expressing in a day? If it's the same old, and there's no challenge in our life, then how do we know we've expressed greater love, kindness, or compassion, or any other positive attribute? We wouldn't know. But when faced with a challenge, and now expressing peace and harmony and tolerance and forgiveness and all those godlike qualities, now you know you've grown. Now you know how much more you've learned than you'd learned before. How much more of your potential you are. So therefore, to get back in this world to the Garden of Eden, we are on the pathway, every human being on earth, all 7.5 billion, whether they realize it or not, are on that pathway back to the Garden of Eden. But they don't realize, unless they're learning with us, that there is an opponent that's not outside of us. The opponent is within us. It's in our head. So how long has that opponent been with us? As long as we've been in this world. From the moment we're born, we have that voice in our head that's telling us, either boosting our ego, how good we are, making us feel we're so much better than we really are expressing in that moment, or the opposite, telling us how bad we are, how much we should feel guilt and shame and anger and fear and worry and uncertainty and all those limitations. So as the Kabbalists teach us, in this world we are at war, but we are at war in our own consciousness. We are at war in our own thinking. We are at war between us and our true light beingness and that false parasitic voice of the opponent that we put in our head to give us challenges. So then, as the Kabbalists say, as we are here every Sunday affirming, consciousness is everything. If consciousness is everything, then the only battlefield that determines our destiny and our sense of fulfillment, or the opposite, is based where? Outside of us? It's based in our head, in our own consciousness. So unfortunately, that voice, that opponent, has been real good at its programming to oppose us. It's even taught us that we have to keep fighting on the outside world. It's a dog-eat-dog world, right? You got to step on people to get ahead. All those wonderful things that do what? Keep us separate and fragmented. So the Kabbalists tell us no. When that opponent made us believe in traditional teachings that the last war is called the War of Armageddon, like it's going to be some huge battle, whether you believe it's a battle in the sky between God and the angels and the devil and this and that and the other thing, or it's some major battle of forces on earth, like we've seen World War I, II, all the other great wars and all the fighting and all the conflicts that have been going on for thousands of years, that's the War of Armageddon, only worse. And the Kabbalists make it very simple. Where is the only war? In our head. So the War of Armageddon, in Kabbalistic terms, simply means the war of consciousness. The war of consciousness. Think back to school. You're taking a test, whether you studied or not, or thought you knew it or not, or whatever. When you're facing that test, that paper, and you're reading the questions, where is the battle? Is it really between you and the professor? In that moment, where's the battle? Between you and the paper? You and the questions? Or is the battle really between what you remember or don't remember in your head? What that opponent, that blockage has made you forget, even if you knew you studied it, but you now can't remember. That's the force of the opponent. The worry, the frustration. Oh my God, I didn't study that piece. I don't remember what he said or she said. The battle is in our head. The war of Armageddon is here. What the Kabbalists teach us is that's the only war that should truly exist. And we're all fighting it to get back where? The Garden of Eden. That heaven on earth, so that we can feel we've achieved that peace, that eternal bliss, by defeating the opponent. So how much do we want to defeat that opponent? How big is your desire for the Garden of Eden, for eternal bliss? You have to think about it. If you have a little bit of desire, how much are you going to fight? Not much. If you have a big desire for the Garden of Eden, for your heaven on earth, for your bliss, for your eternal goodness, the bigger your desire, the stronger that desire, the more effort you're going to make. And therefore, we're already cutting to the chase here in the center. The mission of the Kabbalah Center is only one: win the war of Armageddon. Teach each human being, anyone who wants to walk in the doors or learn online, teach them how to defeat the opponent completely. 100%. We don't want to leave any piece of fragmentation, separation, chaos, difficulty in the world. Complete and absolute destruction of that opponent. It's our mission, it's our goal, it's the purpose of the center, is to teach people the wisdom and the technology called Kabbalah, that we can all apply it and we can fight our opponent, not people outside of us and not any outer circumstance. But the fight is only here. So if you go back into biblical times, look at the army. You often read in the Bible, in the 5 books of Moses, there are armies. The army of Israel went out against their enemy, right? A few years, 40 years in the desert. Moses was leading the Israelites to fight against the enemies on the way to the promised land. So the Kabbalists explain the Bible, yes, it did happen physically, but the more important part, the bigger part, beyond what we might say the tip of the iceberg, is the spiritual meaning for you and me. Because when they assembled an army, even there are hints if you'll look at the Bible. Who were the soldiers who went out to war? They were not just anybody who was strong or willing to go fight, but they were only allowed to fight if they had absolute certainty, they had 100% connection to the light of the Creator around them and in them, with no doubt that it was only being able to channel the light of the Creator that would defeat the opponent. It wasn't the battle. The battle took place before they left, before they went out into the field. Once they were seen and acknowledged absolute certainty in channeling that light of the Creator, then they were allowed to go out and battle. Because the only way you're going to remove darkness, the only way you're going to remove the fragmentation that darkness brings, is with the light of the Creator. That's it. That's our greatest weapon. It's our only weapon, but it's the most powerful weapon any human being has or could make use of, is the infinite light of the Creator. Jacob gives us another way of looking at it. You read in the Bible, Jacob, who raised his level of consciousness from Jacob and given in the Bible the name Israel. And that's why we understand here the Israelites don't mean Jews. That's again what the opponent has made us think, because now we have fragmentation. Well, if it's Israelites, then there's Jews, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindus, atheists, and everybody has their own thing. Again, fragmentation. No, what Jacob was teaching us, how did he become Israel? How was he given that name? He wrestled the angel of the opponent and defeated him. He wrestled in the night of darkness till the break of dawn, and the light removed the opponent from him. And therefore he was raised to the spiritual level known as Israel, which is mind over matter. Consciousness is everything. So you and I are sitting here, we're also at war. Every day we're at war We just are now becoming more and more aware. Just like those righteous people, we have to remember the battle is here. What war, on what front are we each fighting now? Ask yourself. Are you battling on the war or on the front of fear? Do you have fear about your future? Do you have worry about things in your life? Are you concerned about what's going on in the world? What will be your destiny? How are you going to live out your life? What about all the chaos in the world? What about all that mix-up? And look what's going on in the world. Is that your fear? Then that's your battle. And the opponent is going to confront you with every fear possible and turn your head to see all the horrible stuff that's going on to just increase your fear. Not happening to any of you, huh? Just me? So where's the battle? In our own head. Fear is nothing more than imagination used in a negative way. That's it. You hear about somebody few blocks away being robbed. If your battlefront is fear, what's the first thing your opponent starts to use as a tactic against you? Whoa, if it's 2 blocks away, that means they're in your area. So of course, you better batten down the hatches, you better get new security alarms, stronger bars on the door. Don't leave your house just in case somebody's going to try and walk in. So where did your life go? It stopped. Got centered on fear. Because that's all the opponent has to do. If a person has fear of a dog, whether they were bitten once or not, all the opponent has to do is make sure they hear the sound of a dog barking. And what starts to happen? Fear, trepidation, all of the hormones of the body, the chemicals start going, fight or flight, even if it's just on television. I have yet to see a dog jump out of the television and get somebody. But our fear, with the support of that opponent, makes us believe that it could. What about sadness? None of us have sadness. That's not a battlefront. You're feeling sad about something that happened. It's horrible out there. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have sensitivity about things that are happening to people around us or out in the world. But to hold on to sadness becomes the next battlefront. Because if we have sadness, or some of us might have guilt about things that we did or didn't do in the past. So that's our battlefront. And where is the battleground? Is it the thing that happened? Is it the person that happened to? Or is it here in our head once again? Hello? They're telling me louder out there. It's in our head. Sadness, guilt, shame, it's in our head. And again, what happened to life? Stop living. Person didn't move. They stay in their little prison of sadness, guilt, or remorse. Shame. It's a prison. So they're not moving forward. They're trapped. And all the opponent has to keep doing is what? Keep reminding you. What happened? What happened? What happened? You hear somebody say something. You think of something. A song plays, a movie plays. Suddenly you're reminded about that event. And what happens? You forget everything else and you're back to your guilt, your sadness, your shame. No, we have to battle it. What do you do with fear? You act with certainty. Trust in the light. Trust in the light. What's more protection than the light of the Creator? This is why it's so valuable to learn the spiritual understanding of traditional teachings. Like we said with the army. Yes, you can read how the army went out and won, and the army went out sometimes and lost. But they didn't lose because the people were stronger. You read sometimes the Israelite army were 1,000 people and they defeated hundreds of thousands of soldiers. That makes no logical sense. But if you understand it's the light of the Creator doing the work, and it's our job to channel it, then it makes a lot of sense. And then how could they go out with 10,000 and lose to 1,000? Because they also had fear and uncertainty. They let the opponent get in their head and they tried to go out to war anyway. So they were already defeated before they left their camp. So we have to fight fear with certainty. The light of the Creator is our greatest weapon. You have to fight guilt, shame, and sadness also with the light. Go out and do something to repair the situation. And I know what he's saying to you now. Well, what if it was somebody that's no longer in the physical world? How do I repair something I did to somebody who's passed? If they're in your head, if you can hold guilt and shame about something you did to somebody who's no longer in the physical world, then are they really gone, or are they still in the battlefield of your head? They're still alive in your head. So then ask them for forgiveness. Apologize to them. Use your Kabbalistic tools and start sending them, channeling them more light to make up for whatever blockage you helped create for them. And repair it. It doesn't matter whether it's somebody in the physical world or not in the physical world. The process is the same. The light will remove the darkness. It's not our job to wait, send them the light, ask for forgiveness even from a distance, and expect them to call us up. You know, Chaim, yes, I got your message and I forgive you. No, we are forgiven the moment we're sending light to make up for the negative thing we did or the thing that we didn't do that we should have done. Because it's never you and me versus each other or us versus them. It's me in the battleground of the two voices in my own head. So when I can defeat the enemy in my head, I've defeated enemy out here. I've removed the darkness and the blockage out here. So we have to start shifting our thoughts and be aware. Where are we fighting? Sadness, fear, guilt, shame, ego, greed. Right? Of course, nobody's worried about their money. Right? My teachers, the Rav and Karen, used to say like this: if the purpose of the center is to bring immortality, right, the end of the angel of death, because he's part of that opponent, we get rid of the angel of death, how long are we going to live? Forever. So the Rav would say like this: so people now that we already accepted we can achieve immortality, so what did the opponent put in our head? Well, your retirement fund is only going to be for 20 years. If you live 40 now, how are you going to survive? Think about it. People already worried they don't have enough money in their retirement account to live what they think they're going to live, even in a limited way. How are they going to live another 20, 30, 100 years on that money? He's tricky, isn't he? Right? That voice over here. How are we going to live? Well, listen to what we just said. This for me was such... I know I get caught in my own, but it was easy to see this one. People already accepted immortality, live forever. We can live forever, but you know what? I don't know what will happen to my money. Wait a second. You're talking about miraculous, Garden of Eden. You don't think in the Garden of Eden there's more than enough resources for us to live forever on those resources? We can achieve immortality, but we can't expand how much good we have, or the Garden of Eden only has limited resources. Right? Not enough for everybody. Heaven on earth doesn't have enough to supply all of us forever. Hello? You see how he gets us? Any way possible, fight, separate, fragmentation. So they say out there, some of you heard, I forget who said it originally, war is hell. You heard that phrase? Yeah. War is hell. But the only war that's hell is when you're fighting other people, when you're fighting on the outside. Then it's hell. Because why? You're creating fragmentation between you and another piece of your own soul. Remember, we're learning every person out there is a piece of our soul. So when you're fighting other people out there, when you're committing that kind of war, and in our level, yes, it's anger, jealousy, greed, ego, fear, guilt, shame. That's our war against another person. It doesn't have to be like the war, the military go out beating people up or killing or fighting that way, shooting at each other. No. That's the war that is hell, because it keeps people in a constant state of hell on earth. But the war of Kabbalah, the war that we are learning here, is the war for heaven on earth, because it's the war against our opponent, the opponent in our own head. I had a student, very nice example, had conflict with his boss. was moving up the ranks, but he had a boss that wouldn't include him in various meetings. And then, of course, kind of turning around and say, look, why didn't you do this, that, and the other thing? So up until he was learning Kabbalah, a lot of conflict, fragmentation. He didn't understand about removing the blockage by using the light that's already in his soul, using that pure and perfect beingness within him. So as he started to learn, the next time it happened, started a little conflict, and he says to himself, no, pause, stop. Restriction, pause, right? Now we say pause, what a pleasure. Gave him a moment to think. And what did he do? Something we discussed. He looked at his boss and he says, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. The boss was criticizing about something or other, and instead of now arguing and fighting and proving that he had done whatever he was supposed to do, he stopped. And he says to the boss, you know what? Maybe you're right. Let's look at it together and see what we need to do. He says from that moment forward, because he was now bringing his boss on his side, as opposed to making the boss the enemy, he made the negative thought in his head the enemy, and suddenly the whole relationship started to shift. They started to be a little more friendly, a little more civil to each other. The boss would start to magically include him in different meetings, and they became very good friends in the next year. Because he was willing to fight the battle in his head and not the battle outside. Now, just for those who are newer, doesn't mean in every case that you do something similar, you're going to be over at the guy's house, you're going to go out for coffee, you're going to have barbecue, you're going to spend the holidays together. You may never, ever, ever have to be physically in that person's presence anymore. As long as you're sending them light and you work to remove the spiritual blockage between you and them, that's the goal. Because once you've removed the spiritual blockage, then you have eternal access to the light in their soul, which is a piece of our soul from the heaven in the endless world. So then what's our work? Our work is to constantly go back, fight the battle in our head. Because heaven on earth does not mean, as some people think, everything's just going to go smooth, hunky-dory. Right? You're just going to travel in this bed of roses, right? What do they call it? The yellow brick road, everything. No. Heaven is not when everything outside of you goes smoothly. Real heaven on this earth is when you and I are smooth and centered inside. And we feel the power of the Creator inside of us. And we're working to express more and more and remind ourselves that we are already pure and perfect beings of light. And our job is just to express more and more of that. And the more we will do that, the more we face challenges with an equanimity, a centeredness, knowing there's no challenge on earth, no form of darkness that light cannot take away, that the light of the Creator cannot give us a solution. A way and a means to remove the blockage, because it's me. I am already perfect. The Creator can only create perfection. So when we look at ourselves and we can acknowledge, yes, we've done negative things, it's not the real me. It's the mud we collect. And Kabbalah is teaching us how to take the mud off and go back to revealing our pure and perfect beingness. So heaven is not way out there. Not heaven on earth, is right here. And I want to read to you from something in Deuteronomy that's related. He says like this, "It is not too hard for you, nor is it far off. It is not in the sky that you should say, 'Who shall go up for us to the sky and bring it to us, and make us hear it that we may do it?' Nor is it beyond the sea that you should say, 'Well, who will go over the sea for us and bring it back to us that we may hear it and we may do it?' But the word is very close to you. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart that you may do it." We have it. We just have to acknowledge that we have it inside of us. It's just we need to let it express outward. So we can begin to bring heaven to earth, because heaven is only a state of mind. It's not a place to be. It's a state of mind. It's a mindset where we're defeating our opponent. We will not give up until we have defeated him completely. And today is the day that you and I, working in unity, battling the one opponent, because we all have the same opponent, He just has 7.5 billion extensions into the mind of each of us. So as each of us will work together to beat our opponent that's in our head, we are supporting everybody else in the centers who are connected to everybody on earth, and we're supporting everybody to defeat their opponent, to stop giving in to any form of darkness and fragmentation, and we are creating and manifesting heaven on earth. We are back to the Garden of Eden together, starting today. God bless. So thank you for being with us. For those of you who are new, do you happen to have, I'm sorry, I know I'm just throwing this at you. Do you have the Zohar project from yesterday?
The announcement?
No, about the pictures. The pictures from Vegas? Just a minute, because just as a reminder, the greatest project we have in the center is the spread of the Zohar. So whether it's these little pocket Zohars that everybody can carry with them, put a purse, a backpack, right in their pocket, etc., or it's the whole sets of Zohar, or it's the sacred Zohar, this is our greatest mission. Because every one of these pieces of the Zohar radiate the infinite light of the Creator. So we have, throughout the year, various collective projects where students from all over the world gather together in different locales to spread the Zohar, everybody. So actually, this is pictures of the last one. I believe it was Las Vegas. It just goes out everywhere. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. We go to churches, we go to mosques, we go to synagogues, we go to police stations, fire stations, etc. People on the street, hospitals, clinics, anywhere that people can make use of them, that there's a need. In fact, we just activated some students, and if anyone would like more information, there's a group going next Sunday, Monday to Pittsburgh because of the events that happened there. Not only because of that, but we're spreading throughout the area. Because as we're learning here, you cannot pick a certain group. If it's a synagogue attacked, you can't just go to synagogues. If it's a mosque that it's attacked, you can't just go to mosques. Because hatred and fragmentation is unfortunately, meanwhile, universal. So the point of spreading the Zohar is to everybody. Because once we reveal light, then it's clearer and easier for us to see how we're all interconnected and we're all in it together. And the only reason that there's fragmentation between people, races, nationalities, religions, etc., is only one. The opponent in our head. They keep saying, look at them. They don't look like you. They don't act like you. They don't speak like you. They don't believe like you. So who's the enemy? They are. The power of the Zohar is to take away that fragmentation, to let us clearly see with the light of the Creator that we're all in it together, and that what we do to each other is what we do to ourselves. Simple law of cause and effect. What goes out, comes back. So if love goes out, kindness, the desire to enlighten, and the actions to enlighten, that's what's going to come back to us. The thought by itself, without an action following it, then that's all we're going to get. So I don't think any of us want just the Creator metaphorically to think, okay, I'm thinking nicely of you. We want the universe to bring us in physical manner health, peace, love, prosperity, protection, etc. So we have to follow our spiritual meditations with actions to manifest it on earth. We want Garden of Eden manifest in this world. And this is what we're doing. So those who would like to participate, you're certainly welcome to go to Kabbalah.com and check out the Zohar Project, etc. But the reason that I want to bring this up is because the only way we can do this, in fact, many of you have already taken advantage of it, but the entire set of Zohar, 23 volumes that used to be over $400, is now $91. Because people like you and students who have seen miracles were willing to donate money that we could reduce the price to subsidize it to $91. So if you have a pocket Zohar and you're ready for the set, you don't have it, it's only $91. Because generous people helped us subsidize it to that price. So at this point, this is where we do our offering. We are supported by you. So as you've received benefit, we hope that you're sharing also to help us spread this out to other people. And that's why we always take these few minutes to bless the offering. Because the more we put consciousness into our gifts, the more power that it will manifest for others and for us at the same time. Because there's no such thing as win-lose, not in spiritual terms. It's either lose-lose or win-win. Okay, so please hold your gift in your hands. Those of you who are following us on Facebook or on Kabbalah.com, you're welcome to join us in the meditations, and then just go online to make your donation. So just holding in your hands, one is just to have gratitude for all that the Creator has given us, the talent, the abilities, to have the resources we have. And we know by sharing it makes it manifest for us, brings us the true lasting fulfillment of peace, protection, and prosperity, and allows the world also to be enlightened and experience the removal of more and more of that fragmentation, more and more of that opponent, the angel of death and separation, and all of its comrades. We send this gift out through the center and the technology of the Zohar and Kabbalah to reach the heart and soul of every person on earth, awakening them to the realization that they are pure and perfect beings of light, that every other person is a part of themselves, and therefore spreading unconditional love throughout. We send it out knowing that we want to bless the world and having certainty that the blessings will turn to us. And we open our eyes and we say, Amen. So we want to wish everybody who's watching us online a great week. Yell. Happy week. Have a great week filled with light.